If you are a parent of a kiddo who has hit double digits, you have probably asked yourself this question. Is it that my child won't do it or can't do it? You know the moments you ask your child to start homework, get dressed, clean their room, and they just don't. Maybe they argue, maybe they melt down, maybe they just stare at you like you've spoken another language. We're going to talk about the science behind those moments. When is it a will problem, behavior, motivation, or boundaries? And when is it actually a skill problem? Things like planning, task initiation, working memory, and emotional regulation. By the end of this episode, you'll have a simple mental checklist you can use in real time to ask, is this won't or can't? And respond in a way that actually works. Welcome back to Insights from Insight. I'm Amanda from Insight Education Academy, and today we're tackling a question every parent asks at some point. Is it that my child won't do it or can't do it? First, let's define our terms. When I say won't, I'm talking about a child who has the skill to do a task, but is choosing not to use it right now. This can be about motivation, maybe limits, attention seeking, or even a power struggle. When I say can't, I'm not saying never. I'm saying in this moment, under these conditions, this task is beyond their current level of skill or capacity. And here's the twist. On the outside, won't and can't looks identical. The child doesn't move, the task doesn't get done, and the parent gets frustrated. But if we mislabel a can't as a won't, we usually double down on consequences and lectures, when what the kid actually needs is scaffolding and skill building. If we mislabel a won't as a can't, we might over-accommodate and never set a clear boundary. So our job as parents is to become really good at asking, what evidence do I have that this is can't, and what evidence do I have that this is won't? Let's talk about what lives in the can't bucket. A lot of these challenges live under the umbrella of executive function. Something like planning, which is knowing what needs to happen first, second, and last. Or task initiation, which is getting started without someone physically or verbally pushing you. Organization, which is keeping track of materials and steps. Working memory, which is holding directions in your head long enough to act on them. And inhibition and emotional regulation, which is resisting impulses, not flipping the table when frustrated. These skills develop slowly and unevenly, all the way into the mid-20s. So your 9-year-old might read at a high school level, but still fall apart when asked to just start your homework with no structure. On top of that, our Gen Alpha kids were raised in a very different environment. We've got tech and apps that constantly tell them the next step. We have short and high stimulation content that shrinks their tolerance for boring multi-step offline tasks. And of course, pandemic disruptions right in the years when school routines and self-management usually gets built. So when your child freezes at clean your room or start your worksheet, it's often not a pure attitude problem. It's a hardware-software mismatch. Adult expectations running on immature executive function hardware. Now, on the won't side, we do have a true behavior problem. They know how to do it and have done it many times independently, or they resist only in specific contexts, like with you, but not at school, or when they don't like the limit you set, or maybe when the behavior is tied to a clear payoff. Extra screen time, attention, avoiding something boring. For these, we lean more on classic behavior tools, clear limits and routines, consistent, predictable consequences, and not negotiating with screaming. I want to give you practical ways to sort this out in the heat of the moment. A quick 4-question scan. Picture your child not doing the thing you asked. Take a breath and quietly ask yourself, question 1. Have they done this exact task independently more than once in the recent past? If the answer is a solid yes, recently and consistently, that's evidence for won't. If the answer is no, or only when I'm standing over them prompting every step, that leans towards can't yet. Question 2 is, how clear is a task in their world and not in mine? Is clean your room actually a clearly defined task for them, or is it a fuzzy blob? When you say get ready for bed, do they know the exact steps and sequences? If the instructions are vague, long, or multi-step, and they don't have a visual or a checklist, that's a design problem, not a behavior problem. That's a can't see it, not won't do it. Question 3 is what happens if I break it into the first micro step and stand right there? Try this. Instead of do your homework, say, step 1, take the worksheet out of your backpack and put it on the table. I'll wait with you. Instead of clean your room, you say step 1, let's put all the trash in the can. If with that kind of scaffolding your child is suddenly able to move, that tells you the motor was there, but the map was missing. That's can't yet without support. If even with clear micro steps, they escalate into power struggles, bargaining, or nastiness, and you know the skill is there, that's more won't territory. Question 4 is what's the pattern across settings? Do teachers say, oh, they're totally able to do this in class, but it never happens at home? Or do you see the same freeze or meltdown at school, therapy, sports, and home? If a child can do a task for another adult but can't for you, that suggests a relationship boundary behavior issue. If everyone is seeing the same struggles, then that tilts heavily towards skill and support, not willfulness. Once you've done that little internal checklist, here's how you can respond differently. When it's mostly can't or a skill gap, you focus on scaffolding. So you turn big instructions into step-by-step checklists and visuals. You can also try modeling and co-doing. Let's do the first 2 steps together. You can practice routines when everyone is calm and not in crisis, and adjust your expectations to developmental, not just chronological age. You might say something like, this is too big as one chunk. Let's break it into 3 different steps. Or I'll do the first part with you and then you try the next part. Or let's make a checklist so your brain doesn't have to hold all the steps at once. Consequences don't disappear, but they're tied to effort and skill building, not punishment for something they truly can't manage yet. When it's mostly a won't issue, like a behavior or a boundary, you can focus on clear, simple directions, 1 instruction at a time. Predictable routines with predictable follow-through can also help. And being calm, consistent with your consequences that are reasonable and actually enforceable. You might say something like, you've shown me you can do this on your own. Right now you're choosing not to. Here's the boundary. When your room is done to the checklist, then screens are available, not before. Or my favorite, I will not argue about this. You know the expectation and the consequences. And then you pair that with some type of positive reinforcement when they do use the skill. Hey, I noticed you started your homework as soon as I asked. That showed a lot of responsibility. Acknowledging that they can do the task when they choose to can point out to them that you know the difference between can't and won't. Of course, it's rarely 100% won't or 100% can't. Most of the time, it's a blend. Maybe your child is 30% skill gap, like they do need some scaffolding, and 70% pushing boundaries, because they've learned that stalling gets them more screen time. In that case, we do both. We simplify and scaffold the task, and we tighten up the boundary and consequences. Here's your new after-school checklist. Snack, 10-minute break, then start homework. I'll sit here for the first 5 minutes while you get going. Homework starts before any gaming, and if it's not started by 4 o'clock, the tablet stays off tonight. You are saying, I believe you can learn this skill, and I'm going to help you. I also believe that you're capable of making choices, and those choices have real outcomes. I want to leave you with 2 reflection questions you can use this week. First, think about one reoccurring battle. Is it getting up in the morning, getting the chores done, or getting started on their homework? And ask yourself, what parts of this task are won't, and what parts might actually be can't? And your second question is, what is one way I can scaffold the can't part to make it maybe more visual, more step-by-step? And one way I can clarify the boundary around the won't part. If you start experimenting with that lens, won't versus can't, you'll notice your own stress drop because you're not just reacting, you're diagnosing and responding like a consultant, not a frantic manager. In upcoming episodes, we'll keep building these consultant parent tools, including more examples of checklists and scaffolds, especially for Gen Alpha, whose brains are overwhelmed by modern life. If this episode was helpful, share it with a friend who's stuck in those same daily battles. and I will see you next time.